Hello, I'm Sonia and I've got McArdle's. And I was just going to tell you a bit about what I've been doing in lockdown. The main thing I think I've been doing in lockdown is walking. Um, I wasn't diagnosed until I was 60, some 13, 14 years ago. I wasn't very fit. There wasn't an awful lot of information around about McArdle's, but one thing that was clear was that walking was very good. So I decided that I'd start walking and try and get fit. And this I carried on doing, really. I still carry on doing. But during lockdown, my husband and I decided that we would try and walk every morning. And the weather was beautiful, the birds were singing, and we live in a very beautiful part of the country on the very edge of the Peak District and the just where the Pennines end. And it's really, really good. We often drive to places and walk, but we had to walk near home this time. And we went to and discovered different paths around. The weather was nice, so we could walk on the paths. It wasn't muddy. We set off early in the morning, and the birds were singing, and we heard the woodpeckers in the wood, and we saw foxes walking across the fields in daylight. We found a huge riding stables that was near home. We'd no idea that existed. We found a new place to get our eggs from, and over the course of the summer, they opened a farm shop there with a coffee machine, so you could do takeaway coffee. It was really, really good. But this last lockdown, is it the second or third? I've stopped counting. Um, it's been much harder. The weather's been worse, and we have tried to go out every day. In the early lockdown, we walked 3 or 4 miles on one day, and then we'd have a couple of days for me to recharge my batteries and just walk round the blocks and around the edge of the town. This time still try to go out every day. We've been out this morning in the snow, but we have had some atrocious weather. But even if you've got wet through, you still feel better when you get in because you've been outside and you've probably seen other people. My husband and I have been married for 50 years. We've never spent so much time together, so we do need maybe to see another face from time to time. The thing about walking with McArdle's is, though, that I did one of Andrew's walking holidays, and I learnt quite a lot of confidence in walking, really. One of the main things I learnt was how to zigzag to get up a hill. There's loads of hills in Derbyshire. We can't go outside our house without a few yards down the road you're on a hill. So doing this zigzag, I find really good. You look a bit silly sometimes. You feel a bit silly, but it's really, really good. And it's these walking holidays. I think you learn more on them. Just little tips. But there's also the book I had, which was 101 tips. It's really good, and it amuses me that the first entry is to say never start off on a hill, which is, as I've just said, virtually impossible for me. But it's very good because it gives you strategies for coping. And I thought, being diagnosed late, I'd worked quite a few of the strategies out myself, but there were still some things I learned in that book. So that's been really good. And after the walks in the afternoons, I usually do craft work. It's not really very exciting, but I make blankets. I've made about half a dozen that have gone off to a refugee charity. So I did feel I wasn't wasting my time while I'm sitting around. Um, but the main thing has been the walking. And for anybody who doesn't walk, I can't tell you how positive it makes you feel. And it is hard to get out the house this time of year. Really, really difficult when the weather's like it is. But I always think with McArdle's, you have to think what you can do and not what you can't do. I didn't think I'd climb a mountain in Wales like I did with Andrew. and we did. And I've since been on a what I call a ginormous walk in the Peak District. My husband thought he knew this footpath that was with some spectacular scenery, which he did. It was a little bit longer than he'd remembered. It had been a while since he'd been. It it was a very, very steep hill, which ended with climbing over some rocks and then walking through 3/4 of a mile of a bog. And the water was over the top of my walking boots, and I was so tired when I got home, so exhausted. But the next day, after I thought to myself, well, Sonia, you're 73, you've walked all on that awful terrain, and you've got McArdle's. That's a really, really positive thing. And I just think with McArdle's, we have to think what we can do and not concentrate on what we can't do. There's some things we can't do. So just forget about it and just enjoy life and try and be positive.